Hello and welcome to Auto Reviews. Today let's take a look at a vehicle that we have never talked about on the channel, the Mazda CX-7. This can in fact be an ideal mid-size crossover SUV at an affordable budget, especially considering that currently to get even a compact crossover like a Forester or CX-5 you'll have to part with over 3 million shillings for 2017 models. So today let's dissect the CX-7 and find out if indeed it's an SUV worth considering. This vehicle was in production for only one generation, that was from 2006 to 2012, and it was Mazda's first mid-size SUV. It's the vehicle that replaced the Mazda Tribute, then it was later replaced by the CX-5, which was a more compact crossover, yet just as spacious as the CX-7 and even more efficient than the CX-7. In fact, the CX-7 did not sell that well, but its successor, the CX-5, was an instant success. It really sold quite well. Something else worth mentioning is that this CX-7 was underpinned by the Ford C1 platform, so there were quite a good number of components that were shared between some Ford and Mazda vehicles. Before you continue, please take a second of your time to hit that subscribe button so that you can keep getting informative content on cars as well as bikes. Thanks a lot to you all for the continued support. I truly appreciate it. Welcome to Auto Reviews. So what engine options can you expect to get in the CX-7? There are three options: a 2500cc that produces 160 horsepower, a 2300cc turbo option that produces a healthy 244 horsepower, and lastly a 2200cc turbo diesel that churns out around 170 horsepower. This diesel option was mostly common in European markets. In fact, even getting one in the Kenyan market is very difficult. Mostly the option that is locally available is the 2500cc. The turbocharged 2300cc is also quite rare and difficult to get locally. Now this SUV was available in either front or all-wheel drive, and as for the transmission options, there's either a 5 or 6-speed automatic or a 6-speed manual, which again is difficult to get locally. This is a heavy car. In fact, it weighs over 1.7 tons, so the 2.5 liter feels a bit underpowered. It's not too gutless, but with 5 passengers on board, coupled with going uphill, you will feel it's like as if the engine is beginning to strain. So power-wise, it's average, though it's better in terms of reliability compared to the other two options. Now, speaking of reliability, there's something that is important to point out about these engines. Quite a good number of them have suffered from VVT issues, that is variable valve timing. This is a technology whereby valves control the flow of fuel, air, and gases in the engine. So in the CX-7's case, there was a defect with the VVT actuator, especially in the earlier models from around 2006 to around 2009. This defect has been known to lead to issues such as stretching of the timing chain, oil leaks, and even engine failure. And please keep this in mind. This stretching of the timing chain is what can lead to failure of the valves, and this can consequently lead to more serious issues and even engine failure. Ideally, in most cars, timing chains last for almost the lifetime of the engine, but in some cases it may need to be replaced. Like for example, in this CX-7, once that chain expands, it can lead to issues as we've just said. So now, this being an already locally used car, how can you tell the condition of the timing chain? There are key signs that are common in this CX-7's timing chain. One is an abnormal rattling sound upon starting of the engine, or at times even when the engine is idling. Secondly, there can also be engine misfiring, and lastly, failure to start is also another sign that there may be a serious issue with the timing chain. So before you buy a locally used CX-7, make sure that a very thorough mechanical inspection is conducted. That said, another mechanical issue that is worth pointing out is turbo failure in both the petrol and diesel engine options. The 2.3-liter petrol is the most powerful, but it can give you a headache in terms of reliability, from the already mentioned VVT issues to turbo failure and even transmission failure. There have been some cases of the automatic gearbox failure. So in as much as it's powerful, it's not that reliable, and the same case applies to the diesel. In fact, the 2.5 liter is your best bet in terms of reliability. If you can get one in good condition with a good service history, it will serve you well, but make sure to watch out for the already mentioned VVT issues. If you notice anything unusual, make sure it's diagnosed as soon as possible. Something else is that, as I already said, models from 2006 to around 2009 were the ones that were mostly plagued with the aforementioned issues. 2010 to 2012 models were a bit better. Consumption-wise, this is not a very efficient SUV. The 2.5 liter can return figures of between 8 to around 12 kilometers per liter, depending on how you drive. In traffic, around 8, and on the highway up to around 12 kilometers per liter. Keep in mind that this is a heavy SUV, so that also leads to this high consumption. The 2.3 liter turbo is even more thirsty. It can achieve between 7 to 10 kilometers per liter. And lastly, the diesel between 10 to around 15 kilometers per liter. It's the most efficient option. The fuel tank capacity is 62 liters, but the turbo petrol option gets a slightly larger 69-liter tank. Ground clearance is not an issue in this SUV. 206 millimeters is more than adequate for Kenyan roads. As for suspension, it gets McPherson struts at the front and a multi-link setup at the back. This suspension setup is actually shared with the Mazda Primacy and Mazda MPV, so sourcing them is not difficult as they are used in other vehicles. If you go looking for a CX-7 suspension and you don't get it, just look for a Primacy suspension and you'll be good to go. The brake setup is ventilated discs at the front and back, and as for the carb weight, this car measures around 1780 kgs, which is on the heavier side. What about safety? As standard, this SUV gets driver and passenger airbags, side curtain airbags, ABS, EBD, and anti-whiplash head restraints. The only optional feature is blind spot detection, which was introduced in higher trim levels from 2010 after the facelift. Now, currently, this SUV will set you back between 850,000 to around 1.5 million, depending on the model year, the condition, mileage, and features. The later models like 2011 and 2012 are more expensive. Then if you get ones with features such as a sunroof, electric seats, and blind spot detection, it will certainly be more expensive, but mostly they top out at around 1.5 million shillings. Is it value for money? Let's discuss that shortly. What do you think about its looks? Do let me know in the comment section. I think it's an okay design. At the front it looks sporty, but at the back it tends to look a bit bulky. Generally, some people like it, others don't. It was produced at a time when Mazda was yet to introduce the Kodo design. The interior feels very solidly put together. The design is decent enough and ergonomics are quite good. As for space, this SUV looks big on the outside, but interior-wise, it's not that spacious. In fact, its successor, the CX-5, is smaller on the outside, but then its interior is similarly spacious as the CX-7. So that tells you that the space packaging in this CX-7 was not done that well, but generally it's not too bad. A family of around 4 or 5 can be accommodated with not too much challenges. That said, something like a Toyota Harrier of the same model year is more spacious. On to the pros and cons, beginning with the pros. This SUV has some good handling characteristics. It feels more like a hatchback than a mid-size crossover. Yes, there's a bit of body roll on corners, but it's significantly less compared to other SUVs. Another pro is its comfort. It's very comfortable thanks to its suspension setup plus the seats. Lastly, it seems like a good value proposition. At around 1.5 million shillings, you can get yourself a good example with impressive features. Let's talk more about value for money as we wrap up the video. On to its cons, there are the mechanical issues that we talked about earlier, the turbo issues in the 2.3 liter, then there is also the VVT issues that can lead to oil leaks, stretching of the timing chain, and engine misfires. There's also issues to do with the transmission failure. Other cons are its not so practical interior and its inefficiency. So, should you buy a CX-7? Is it a good value proposition? Considering the price and what it offers, it seems like a good value proposition. If you can get one that is in good mechanical shape at around 1.5 million or slightly less, you will be rewarded with good performance and comfort. At that amount, getting a mid-size SUV with features such as blind spot detection, sunroof, and more is a good deal. And keep in mind that the 2.5-liter engine is a better buy in terms of reliability. And also don't forget this: models from 2010 are better in terms of reliability. That said, things like poor efficiency, lack of practicality, and the risk of mechanical issues may be enough to put some people off, plus the fact that there are other more spacious and more reliable SUVs at a similar amount. A perfect case in point is the Toyota Harrier or even the Toyota Kluger, though there are some people who don't like Harriers because of how common they are. So I would say this: a CX-7 is ideal for someone who prefers a less common car that is engaging to drive. And if you are to get one with the 2.5-liter engine, which is post 2010, and make sure to schedule a mechanical inspection to confirm its mechanical condition. So to answer the question, is it value for money? Yes, it is, though there are better SUVs in terms of reliability and practicality and ease of maintenance. I also forgot to mention that the body parts of this SUV can be a bit challenging to get. I hope this has been helpful. Do let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks a lot for watching. As always, if you have any inquiries, feel free to reach me via WhatsApp or email. That's it for today. Stay safe, ride and drive safe, and see you in the next one.